Hello gobs, and welcome back to another wonderful, or maybe not so wonderful, episode of RPG Stories. For those of you who are new to my channel, I am reading some RPG horror stories. For now, it's horror, it's all horror, most of it's horror, even if it's lighthearted, it's so horror. I keep saying I want to read other stories, but I don't find other stories, and horror ones tend to do the best. It might be a thing to read two horror ones, and then a lighthearted one, but I can never find a lighthearted one, or maybe just there's not a subreddit for it. So guys, if you have a fun, lighthearted story that will hopefully make people laugh, or if you just think it's entertaining in a way, then tell me down in the comments below or go to my subreddit, okay? Just post a story someplace. I will be notified, okay, where I can see it, and I will read it for everybody. And it will be fun, and it will be great. Hopefully. Man, this intro sucks today. I'm the Goblin King. I do RPG content. Click my name to see the other type of content I do. If it interests you, subscribe. And we're just going to read some stories, give advice, and yeah. But before we get into that, these may or may not be real. That is not up for me to decide. Even if they aren't real, they still make great stories to give advice on. And to any OP that sees their stories in any of my videos, if you don't want your story up here, just let me know and I'll cut it out of the video. I guess I should have been asking, but at the same time, I just see all these other people reading off of Reddit anyways, so I'm like, I don't really need to do it, but I figured if someone wants me to remove their story, then just let me know and I'll remove it. Simple as that. But with all that out of the way, let's get into the title and then we'll get into our first story. Now, if you've been a subscriber for this channel, you know my feelings about AI. If not, go check out my rant about using generative AI, at least in, not content, well, in content creation, it's generative AI in general, but I was thinking more towards TTRPGs. But I usually read tons of stories on here about people using AI in their campaigns, and today's going to be no different, as that's our first story that we're starting out with. So, our first story comes from Familiar Relation 85, Rampant DM AI Use. I'm so continuously thankful I don't have tech bro brain rot. I've been playing with a consistent group for a while now, and the DM has slowly escalated his use of AI, and it's gotten to the point of being rampant. He'll regularly use Gen AI and a dozen other AI automation tools for running the game, generating nonsensical questlines, player character arcs, location, character art, and magic items that are either broken, underwhelming, or just straight up copying an established feature that the person's class already does, thus rendering the item useless. Everything down to session notes and summary, and it's all just disgusting. We're just at the first paragraph and it already sounds awful. Is this even your game anymore? This isn't even your game anymore. To that point, you're using so much AI. It's like, what's the point in even running the game? They might as well just all get their own chatbots and just run the game off of that at this point. Let's just continue reading. He created an entire questline centered on my character, utilizing backstory elements that were clearly made by AI, because the entire thing was completely disjointed from the backstory points I wrote. The NPCs in questions didn't behave at all like they were described, and one of them actively wanted to kill my character suddenly despite being the single positive interaction in said backstory NPC roster. Now a sworn homicidal, revenge-driven murderer. For some crap my character didn't even do, no less. Literally, just hallucinations from the AI chatbot that are now canon about my character. It's so effing insulting. His reason is also pure cope too, that he works full time, so he just has to use AI to save him that 20 to 45 minutes, according to him, it would take just to make some crap up himself, or God forbid, improv something. I know that the job market lately is garbage, so some people are working themselves to death or potentially just straight up unemployed and stressed about that. But for most of my TTRPG career, I've worked full-time, if not overtime, and had a successful, healthy relationship and other hobbies on the side too. And I never needed AI to do it. Passion is free. Effort is free. Intention and care and consideration are free. I just don't get how people are fine with that either. He has 2 games he runs with 2 different groups that usually meet weekly. My players would be horrified if I showed up every week with what they hope to be effort and passion for their characters and the world, and they were greeted by AI slop for quests and NPCs interactions that I, as a DM, couldn't even bother to make myself, or, again, God forbid, effing improv. I don't want to abandon this table because I do like the people and I'm invested in what I know this guy can actually do when he gives the F. But it's been a solid year since this crap started to kick up and it's just so disappointing. Well, there you have it. Once again, someone who's dug too deep into AI. Now, I used to have a full-time job, and even when I was running that full-time job, granted, we didn't meet every week, but we did meet like bi-weekly. Oh no, I don't know. We were meeting pretty much every week, and I still ran campaigns for my little group that I have, and I was still able to meet weekly and plan out sessions in my free time, or shoot, I would even just plan it in my head at work. It's not that it wasn't that big of a deal, but every job is different. Sometimes it takes more of a mental toll or more of a physical toll on you, but I still think you could do full time and do a campaign at the same time. And if you can't, then maybe DMing isn't the job for you if you have to use so many AI tools in order just to keep the campaign moving, I guess, or keep building it. But at that point, it might be better to let someone else in the group DM so that you can still play with those people and still be a player if you don't like the use of AI. At the end of the day, if you don't like it and they're not going to change their ways, you should, talk to them first and like, hey, I don't really like all this AI use. And if they're not willing to change, then just move on. That's about it. If you're to the point that you're no longer having fun and talking to them didn't work or change their mindset, then, just don't play. And like I always say, that's so much easier said than done. But again, really, if you're just having that much of a bad time with it, then why even play at all? Even if you like the people, maybe you can, split away and find a different DM, or maybe make someone else the DM. Something else so that you don't have to sit through all this slop. Right? That's not so bad. But again, everyone's lifestyle is different. I'm not putting any hate towards the guy using all the AI, okay? Like I said, every work can be mentally exhausting, physically exhausting, but if you're using so much Gen AI, and you're trying to run 2 games, and you're trying to do full-time, and the full-time is just that exhausting, then like I said, maybe DMing right now just isn't for you. Or, you don't have to do it every week. You can do it bi-weekly or even once a month, or use all your free time, like an hour a day, or even maybe a couple hours a week, just sit aside and just work on the campaign for the next session, and that way it doesn't feel as if it's taking a big of a toll on you. See? That works too, and no AI needed. So at the end of the day, I'd rather you use your own imagination than get some help from somebody else's stolen work. Even if it's personal use, it's still better to use your brain than not to use your brain at all. Let's move on to our next story. Our next story comes from Mitru0. Player created character with no attempt to interact with party. For context, I am the GM, and the setting for this game is a university with a Persona-like campaign structure. So some of the content is in the university, and the player enters these sort of dungeons that exist in a parallel world. I had one player who, when making a character, just refused to help me help them. They described first the character as a bit of a loner, already a small red flag, who lives with her older sister. So far, it's fine. But then I ask follow-up questions. Cool. Is your character in any clubs or extracurriculars? No. How about any friends at the university? No, they only really interact with their sister. Sister doesn't go to the school, by the way. So what about hobbies? Anything your character's into? No, they just like reading. I need you to help me out here. Your character is at university, class just ended. What are they doing? Probably just going to home to read, I think. Guy gave me nothing to work with, and when I asked him, how's your character going to get involved with the plot of the campaign? Again, no answer. I did tell him that to get his character involved without some kind of assistance from the backstory, I'm going to have to make an extremely extroverted NPC that adopts them, which I generally don't like doing. They said they were fine with that. Fast forward to session 1. Since it's a university, I told everyone in session 0 that the first session would be at the club fair that's hosted during the final week of the semester. When I asked him what his character would be doing, he said his character wouldn't be there at all and would just go home. I had to create a side scene where the extroverted NPC I made literally forces him to go to the club fair. I think the part I found frustrating was that I told him I was going to do this and he agreed to have an NPC adopt him, but he was still restrained to it. But eventually, I get his character to the club fair where he refuses to interact with other players. Then the quest starts. Enemies spawn, people panic, players fight off the bad guy and can follow them through a portal into the parallel world I mentioned before. 4 out of 5 players agreed they were going in. The subject of this post just says his character leaves without saying anything. The 4 out of 5 who I think at this point were annoyed with the character decide to go in, so I tried to be clever and narrate for the last guy. You see the 4 students going to the portal. Would your character have any sense of heroism? Maybe realize there is strength in numbers and you can make a difference? He already left. At this point, I just got fed up and said, okay, here's the deal, man. If you don't go into that portal, you just don't get to play next session. 4 out of 5 party members went to do a dungeon. I'm not about to do a 4-to-1 party split where the one just reads a book and they're home. I hear him audibly get annoyed and say something along the lines of, fine, my character feels a forceful tug as he gets magically pulled into the portal. He ended up leaving the campaign after that with a passive-aggressive message in chat. I was going to give him the boot anyway, so it worked out, but it still shocks me how people will sign up for a D&D game and just refuse to interact with other people. Now firstly, before I get into the story, can I say, GM, OP, that this sounds like an absolutely fun setting, okay? I like Persona games, and I always kind of wanted there to be a university one, and to even top this off with, you could even use, let's go through the list of RPGs you could use for this. The top of the list is Shin Megami Tensei Tokyo Conception. I mean, Persona is literally a spinoff of Shin Megami SMT. I'm just going to say SMT. And there is a SMT TTRPG that kind of has mechanics similar to Persona, and in the book, it has rules for playing in the real world, and then demons, it's kind of like Jujutsu Kaisen where the demons themselves can create like realms that only allow certain people to enter. So you could make like demon hunters, but it is based off of SMT3. You don't need to play the game to play the TTRPG. But the other one I'm also thinking of you could probably do is Fabula Ultima in a weird way, but I think you could just use Fabula Ultima for anything. So don't listen to me on that. I mean, or do listen to me. It's whatever, but I think Fabula Ultima could also work here. Like you have your normal characters, and then when they go into the other world, they get all their abilities that they made their character with. So that too. Let's see, is there anything else? I think that's the 2 off the top of my head, but there might be others. So if you have any other RPGs that could work in a university Persona setting, then let me know. Now let's talk about the loner stereotype of this story. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to play a loner. It's just that people tend to get the idea wrong. A lot of people play loner characters, and I think they expect the party to interact with them when it's kind of the opposite way. Now, you don't have to like always interact with the party. You don't have to, but you do have to have some type of giveaway. You do have to have the loner party actually go with the party, even if they don't interact with the other players. I think the point of playing a loner character usually is for, I'm trying to think. I want to say that it's eventually so the loner character opens up to the rest of the party, or like, you know, it's a misfit, someone who doesn't fit in, and then they find some way to fit in with the party or these other people. And I think that's usually what a loner character is like. It's like playing a rogue in D&D, and then the rogue is like this thief, but the thief eventually learns to save the world or have some type of heroism, and he joins the party and goes with the party. He might not agree with everything the party does. He might do stuff that hinders the party at points, but at least he's still interacting with the party in some way. I think that's how you play a loner character. Now, the GM introducing an extroverted NPC can actually really help. It is a character that is going to drag on this loner and drag him back to the party. And it could also give the loner character someone to care about. And then now that could become a pivotal NPC. So if the NPC gets in trouble or anything, then the loner character can have an attachment to them if that's what some people are playing. Have I ever wanted to make a loner character? I don't know. I would have to ask my own my own group about that if I ever tried to make a loner character. But even when I have loner characters in my head, they still have like rules, I want to say, like personal standards that they hold themselves to. It's like they might be alone, but they'll still help people if X thing happens or if X condition is met, or like they need something and they'll still go out and help with these people and work with them. I have made characters like that, but they're not loner. There's alone, but they're still willing to work with the party and move with the party. So you can make loner characters as long as they stay with the party. And again, you don't have to interact with them if you really don't want to. That might create a thing. I guess it could also feel really main character-y in a weird way, because then you're like expecting the GM to put a spotlight on your character because they're the loner and they're split from the party now because they're off doing their own thing, so now the GM has to focus entirely on them. But I won't say that's the case all the time, but hopefully that whole ramble made sense. But if you ever do have a loner type character, maybe talk to your player and express that you would want them to interact with the party, or if they can't, then maybe they should make a character that is willing to interact with the party. If they could hit you with the, that's what my character would do, well, maybe make a character that does want to interact with the party, or, you know, just boot them like this person did. If talking to them doesn't work, just give them the big old boot. And let's move on to our final story. Our final story comes from Golden Socks. I cast Cure Wounds and lost free will. It's lighthearted, fairly light compared to many RPG horror stories, but wanted to share this from a few years ago. I joined a group in progress as the 5th player character. They told me they weren't a super serious group, but didn't want any joke characters, which was no problem. Everything seemed on the up and up. 3 of the other players definitely were playing more seriously, and that they were very much into the rules and making powerful characters. The other player was more along for the ride type guy, but not really a focus of this story. But I like playing more support focused characters, so it didn't bother me too much. I was fine with letting them do big damage while I kept them going as a more support role. Eventually, after a couple of sessions, we had a battle that was going rough and spread the group out a bit to deal with threats at multiple ends of a board. I was with another player and was moving to return to the main group after finishing up on one end of the board. I moved next to the other player and didn't want to dash in and out in the open, so I stopped, and since I had extra spell slots at the time, I used Cure Wounds on the other player to give them some extra health. The other 3 people started to groan and complain that I was wasting my turn and spell slots, and why in the world would I take Cure Wounds as a spell to begin with. I tried to explain myself, but it seemed to not ease them down. We continued on and finished the session, but I felt something was off. Turns out I was right and something was off. Apparently I wasn't performing good enough for the 3 players more into the game side of things. They were complaining that I wasn't doing enough and focusing too much on support and being too much of a joke character. They basically were upset that I wasn't playing clerics the way they wanted. I wasn't taking every optimal spell, but I thought I was holding enough on my own for what I wanted. The next session, they told me the exact spell list to prepare and how I should be playing my character, including what actions I should be taking every single turn. Every time I wanted to do something different, I had to defend my actions. Major backseat playing. I grew tired quickly, and by the end of the session, I was exhausted. I talked to the DM, and he said his hands were tied. Unfortunately, I decided to back out of the campaign after we couldn't come to an agreement. No idea what happened to that group. This sounds like you were fortunately decided to back out of the campaign after that entire mess. How are you gonna have a, we're not super serious, but don't make a joke character and then get mad when they want to play the game the way they want to play? If you wanted an optimized character or someone to play optimally, then maybe you should have put that when you were trying to reach out to OP or however OP came upon you. Maybe you should have made it very upfront that you wanted a min-max character, you wanted an optimal character, you wanted someone to play optimally, even though it's D&D. Sorry, I see too much stuff. I have a whole video on me raving and ranting about min-maxing, so go check that out. But anyways, I'm not gonna spew anything. Just know I don't like min-maxing, but to some people, that's how they want to play, and it appears they should have just let OP known, and the DM just going, nothing I can do, my hands are tied, I can't do anything about it. Well, then it's probably a good thing that you backed out after talking didn't work. Honestly, like they always say, no D&D is better than bad D&D, or no RPGs are better than bad RPGs. That's what I say. That's what makes me unique and different. or whatever. But it's a good thing you left when you did. Look, I don't think it's any issues on original people. Well, it wasn't an issue until they started complaining about why you take the spell list, and then they were trying to literally decide every action. They were trying to play the game for you. That's when the issue started. It's not an issue if you want an optimal character, or if you want a min-max character, or if you want someone to play min-max. You should have let them know up front that is what you wanted. And the DM should have definitely stood up for their player at least, instead of like, nothing I can do, my hands are tied. I mean, talk to your players. Do you have no control over the player? You're the DM. Just tell them like, hey, knock it off. But I guess some people aren't confrontational, so it's whatever. So luckily, OP did the right thing and just left the campaign. And with that, that is all of our stories for today. Woo! Horror stories. They weren't that bad, actually. So, what would you have guys done differently? What did you think? Tell me all of that in the comments below. This is definitely not to get engagement on the video or anything. And if you enjoyed it, like it. If you want to see more, subscribe it. And if you want to see the other type of content I do, click on my name. I have tons of other videos that I do. Please keep watching. I really like doing this, and I want to keep doing this. So please do more. Woo! Or don't. I don't. I'm the king. I command you. Well, I don't care. So thank you to the OPs for uploading your stories and hopefully allowing me to read them. So if you see this, again, if you don't want me to have it in a video, just let me know. I'll cut it out. It might be an extremely short video, but people have the right to their own stories on what they want to do with it. And thank you, yes, the person watching this, thank you for making it this far into the video. And I hope you gobs have a lop of a day. May your adventures be free from edgy loner stereotypes. Wasn't even that edgy, it was just loner. Yeah, well, yeah, whatever.